So, Alice, you did the cruise the first time in 2015, and you were out here with you and Paul Rogers, but now it's just you and I, mano a mano. But I do want to start with Paul Rogers, because you were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2011, and finally, this past week, Bad Company has been nominated for induction.
Yeah. You know, Paul, in the business, we call Paul the voice, because he's just one of the best singers out there, and one of the nicest guys ever. And had some physical problems lately, but I certainly voted for him.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. This is one of the folks that gets to vote every year for who should be going into the Hall of Fame. He gets a ballot sent in.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be.
I kind of look for the classics, the real classics, you know.
Not that you would know everybody who's in and out, but there are some people that surprise you that are not in that you would like to make a push for.
Iron Maiden.
Yeah!
I mean, come on, Iron Maiden. I mean, how can you diss Iron Maiden? They have their own army out there, and another one is Burt Bacharach. Burt Bacharach
That's a great.
wrote as many hits as the Beatles, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. And yet there's other guys that are in the Hall of Fame that were writers that weren't anywhere near Burt Bacharach. So Burt Bacharach is certainly something that I would say.
Well, it's funny you say that, because maybe some folks here will go, Burt Bacharach, you know, he's not rock and roll, because everybody's got a different definition of rock and roll. Every time they announce who's going in, I get asked to go on stations around the country, and they talk to me about it and get my opinion. Not that it really matters, but they go, Missy Elliott, she's not rock and roll, and this one, they're not rock and roll. And I go, you don't remember the first class that ever went in 1986 was a hodgepodge. It was R&B stars, blues artists.
Yeah.
And I go, you have to look at rock and roll as a lifestyle. So to that end, you obviously don't get hung up on the phrase rock and roll.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's really hard for me to put, you know, somebody, let's say, like Missy Elliott, in with the Who. You know, I mean, those are two different worlds, you know, and, but like you said, it's a lifestyle, and it's really who brought what to the table. If somebody came in and had an impact that wasn't there before, and that's why you'll see some interesting people in the Hall of Fame. I was like you, I was in there going, come on, it was rock and roll bands, that's what rock is, you know. But then I kind of loosened up that idea. Even Dolly Parton said, I don't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know, I mean, she's going, what am I doing in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? But then she made a rock record.
Right.
But, you know, she's, no, I don't think anybody begrudges her that, but I would still prefer to see an Iron Maiden in there before I would see some of these other ones. Right. Joe Cocker and people like that.
Joe was nominated last week too.
Yeah,
So,
he got my vote too.
Yeah, Bad Company, Joe Cocker, Black Crowes,
Yeah.
Oasis,
White Stripes.
Soundgarden.
Yeah. Well, Detroit, you know, Detroit White Stripes. He's my boy.
There you go. So, you got a lot going on, as you always do. By the way, you know, I thought, you know, you're stuck at sea, but we could have gone and done the interview on the putting green upstairs. That would have been nice.
It's just not the same. Yeah. I do play golf every day. And we've kind of made it a rock and roll sport now. It used to be, you know, that wasn't a rock and roll sport, but almost every guy in every band plays golf. Because you're in Wichita on a Tuesday, and you're going to be there all day. Are you going to go to the mall again? You know? So golf has become something that gets you out of the hotel room, and, you know, at least you're outside doing something, and you're pretty much isolated where you can, you know, you can have some freedom out there.
Yeah.
So we play every day.
So, well, certainly while we appreciate and love the fact that you're here on this cruise, has it been tough during the day because you can't go out to a golf course?
Well, I went through withdrawals the first 2 days. And, but no, it's you know, it's with me, it's a habit. I quit drinking 42 years ago. And I had to find an addiction that wasn't going to kill me, because all my other addictions were killing me. And so I was a good baseball player. And I said, well, how hard is it to, I can hit a fastball. I should be able to hit a ball that's not moving. Not true, not true. But I do play every day, and I'm like a 4 handicap, so I play the big tournaments.
Yeah. And do you map out the tour that, you know, in other words, is it prerequisite that there has to be a golf course?
No, no. The band did find it odd that we were at Pebble Beach for a week. Callaway, I've been on their staff for 30 years, and so they get our itinerary and they set up all the golf, you know, and it's cool because we play with people that we don't know, and they come out and they play with us, and we take them to the show that night, and treat them like VIPs and everything. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that is pretty nice. So another busy year. You've been doing a couple dates leading up to this. You got a spring tour coming, a summer tour. Excited? What can we expect from you this year?
Well, I mean, we tour constantly. It's like I spend at least 5 months on the road every year. It's just, when COVID hit, I went through real withdrawals, 18 months without touring. And, you literally start shaking a little bit, going, come on, we gotta get back on stage. And we didn't know if we ever were going to get back on stage, to be honest with you. But people always say, why don't you retire and just play golf? Retirement is not in my vocabulary at all. And if you heard the band I work with, the band I've got is just phenomenal. We have Gilby Clark playing with us for these 10 shows, but Nita Strauss will be with us again when we start up the tour. But Gilby sat in, which was great because he was the perfect guy to come in.
Yeah.
And we've known Gilby since Guns N' Roses and everything. So he was a perfect fit. But Nita is a force of nature unto herself. She's amazing.
And you originally it was Orianti that was going to replace.
There's never any ego problems. Same thing with the Vampires, with the Hollywood Vampires. Everybody, we've been together 8 years. With Johnny Depp and Joe Perry and everybody. There's never been one argument in that band. Because it's everybody just kind of backs off to the other guy and just says, okay, let's just do what sounds right.
And what is the latest with the Vampires? Will you be doing something again in the...
We were going to do this summer, but Johnny got 2 movies he had to do that he was obligated to do. So that tour got postponed. But it's funny because when I do my show, I play Alice Cooper. I play this character, this arrogant villain up there. And when I'm with the Vampires, I'm just the lead singer, which is kind of interesting for me because Alice never talks to the audience. The character Alice never talks to the audience. Alice in The Vampires talks all night to the audience, because it's a different thing. When we put the Vampires together, the whole idea was to put a bar band together. And it was we were gonna just play bars, just for the fun of it. And we were gonna do songs for all of our dead drunk friends. Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison, all those guys, they were our big brothers. And we used to get drunk with them all the time. And since they were all gone, we said, well, let's just honor them by playing their songs. And so we put a bar band together. The very first show was 200 people with the Vampires. The second show was 200,000 people. Rock in Rio. And it was one of those things where nobody was expecting that, but all of a sudden, we were at Rock in Rio. Now, Duff McKagan with Guns N' Roses was on bass. Joe Perry on guitar.
Joe?
Myself. We played in front of 200,000. Johnny was used to the Viper Room, So he's standing there. And I said, okay, let's pretend this is a movie and you're playing a rock star. I said, you do the same show for 20 people that you do for 20,000 people. It doesn't matter how many people. You can drown in 2 inches of water or you can drown in 2,000 feet of water. I said, just go out and be a rock star. And he was such a natural and a great guitar player too.
Yeah, he really can play.
He's a very good guitar player, yeah.
And when you you put him up there, you know, next to Joe Perry, you'd think, well, why do we need Johnny? But yeah.
Yeah, but he can play right along with Joe. You know, and what it is on stage is Joe's over here, I'm in the middle, and Johnny's over here. So every once in a while I have to go over here just to get a little attention. Because all the girls are looking over here. Yeah.
It's funny, well, it's not funny when it happened. I was at that show in Coney Island when all of a sudden Joe wasn't there.
Yeah.
At a little,
Joe got very sick that night, and that was one of the nights Johnny took over and played all the guitar.
Yeah.
Johnny and Tommy.
Yeah, it carried on seamlessly.
Yeah, so that it kind of proved to people that without those stories.
Yeah.
But Alice would never do that in our show. You know, I try to keep him so he's non-human. You know, and that's what makes Alice, puts him apart. Because I don't even hang out with him.
How do you keep Alice fresh year after year?
Alice is an entity unto himself, you know. I'll be sitting here like this talking, and now if the curtain came down and I put all the makeup on and everything, the next time that curtain came up, it would not be me. It would be Alice. And he has a whole different way of doing everything. I always thought that the villain got the best lines. Rock and roll did not have a villain. Rock and roll had all Peter Pans and no Captain Hook. And so I went, well, I would gladly be Captain Hook, you know. And the band, we had that image anyways. We were always sort of the outsiders, you know. And so I just kept pushing Alice further and further and further until it got more and more theatrical. And now the show is that, you know, it's always been very, very theatrical, but it's even, okay, so my hand. I was on the floor, and his boot was right here. That's great, Elvis. Can I get up now? And then he says, this was something that really taught me something. He says, you want to see my most prized possession? And I'm going, yeah. So we go in the other room, go in the bedroom, we close the door, and I went, wait a minute. Most prized possession. And he says, sit down, I'm going to show you something. And he opens a drawer and he takes out an envelope full of x-rays. I'm trying to put this together going, most prized possession. And he says, what happened was, he said, I was coming out of the show the other night. He says, and 3 drunk cowboys want to fight me in the parking lot. I called my boys off and I fought all 3 of them. Broke this guy's ankle right here. He says, and then I broke this guy's collarbone right. And I go, this is your prized possession. And I realized it was his only contact with the outside world. He couldn't go to the movies. He couldn't go to a restaurant. He couldn't do anything that all of us can do because he was Elvis Presley, the most recognized character in the world. So he lived in this world where he could have anything he wanted. If I gave anybody here the biggest mansion you could imagine and said you can have anything you want in that mansion, but you can't leave, you'd find a way to kill yourself. You would eat yourself to death, you'd drug yourself to death, you'd do something. Because it was so unnatural not to be able to have a life. And he was so big, he didn't have that life. Same with Michael Jackson. You get to a point where you can't move because of your popularity. And right then I thought, I never want to be this big. I never want to be at the point where I can't go out shopping with my wife, or I can't go have lunch, or I can't, you know. But that taught me something right there. And I felt really sorry for him. You know, he was a great guy, really great sense of humor, made fun of himself all the time. But he was a prisoner of Elvis Presley.
That's a great story. You shared that. I went back and it was a YouTube video of you and Paul Rogers with myself from the cruise. So I went back to watch it and said, let's see if there's anything in here that I can. And I looked, the Elvis story was top of that interview. Yeah. And so I said, all right, Alice, if you had the devil on each shoulder, music or golf?
Oh, music.